First of all, the journalists should recognize there is a global movement to have the content providers pay their fair share. Some of this problem stems from the start of the internet. There was no video, and the business model was never created properly. At the time, email and e-commerce, they didn't take a lot of bandwidth. So there wasn't a need to set up a regime. But now things have changed because video is, quote, the killer app of the internet. So it is absolutely correct that this is a problem in Europe. I mentioned the gap of 300 billion euros for investment and the desire of the European operators and the government to find a sustainable financial model for networks. In this case, it is necessary. Regulations become necessary when a large player abuses its market power, like Netflix. Netflix has attempted to subvert the market norms to suit its business interests. It is not logical that the single largest provider of video traffic to Korea, which uses the networks more than anyone else, should get a free ride. Of course, my preference is that Netflix would recognize that it should be a responsible actor on the internet and pay its fair share of the networks. After all, Netflix should want to see the continued investment of networks in Korea. However, it is motivated by its own greed and to reduce its own costs. So in this case, it seems like legislation is inevitable. And by the way, other countries are looking at this as well. The Netflix litigation is extremely significant for policymakers and broadband providers around the world. Everyone recognizes South Korea as perhaps the number one broadband market. It has a history of leading in all kinds of broadband technologies. For example, 3G, 4G, 5G, and so forth, in addition to its tremendous success to enable the digital society. So therefore, people take it very seriously, the policies considered in South Korea, because it is a leader. And the litigation is also significant because many policymakers consider Netflix as a bully. They have abused the political system in various countries. They attempt to subvert the principles of economics, and they are able to change the political regime to suit their business. So many countries feel that South Korea is very brave, and they are pleased that a company like SKB Broadband is willing to stand up to the global bully. When the user requests a Netflix content, it is actually Netflix which controls the stream. For example, it can designate ultra high definition or standard definition. So this is under Netflix's control, not SKB. When the user requests the Netflix content, Netflix designates a server to stream the content, and then the content is streamed to the user. Netflix uses algorithms to provide the preferred characteristics. Of course, SK Broadband is facilitating this stream because it must build the network and maintain the business operation with the end users. First of all, I reject Netflix's claim that it has no obligation to pay for the traffic it sends to SK Broadband's network. The use of bill and keep requires the exchange of traffic to be relatively equal and for the parties to agree that they want to use bill and keep. So bill and keep originated in the telephony world when people used telephones. Typically, the telephone networks exchanged the traffic. It was relatively equal. Now that we come to the internet, Netflix sends a tremendously large amount of traffic into SKB's network. SKB does not send that traffic back to Netflix. So bill and keep is not appropriate in this case. So the installation of the Netflix OCA is profit maximizing from Netflix's perspective. However, it harms SK Broadband because it deprives SK Broadband of the fees that it needs to maintain and invest in the network. When I have studied this issue in the United States on 4 broadband networks, which are fiber to the home, I found that the installation of the Netflix OCA actually increased the cost and the traffic to the broadband providers. This is because the Netflix content is so massive that it requires a lot of energy, electricity, equipment, and labor and maintenance to process. Moreover, the installation of the Netflix OCA may be anti-competitive. That piece of equipment can only be used for Netflix content. It takes away space in the network, and that space and equipment cannot be used for other content providers. Therefore, Netflix gets an unfair advantage over competitors. Lastly, if the broadband provider would accept such a piece of equipment from every content provider, it would be impossible to operate. So, first of all, it is not a double charge. And the internet is a two-sided market. That is an established fact. Netflix might not like it, but that's the way it is. So let me give a simple example. A two-sided market is something like the newspaper industry. On one side of the market are advertisers who make ads. On the other side of the market are readers who buy subscriptions. So in this example, the broadband provider is like the newspaper who's in the middle. The broadband provider will sell advertisements at different prices for different sizes of ads. And then the broadband provider will also sell subscriptions to the end user. They are a different set of services and different set of fees. Therefore, there's no double charging. And the most important reason why Netflix has made a false argument is that not all of the customers on SKB's network subscribe to Netflix. It's not fair to charge all of the customers for the cost of Netflix when only some of them subscribe. In other words, there may be 23 million Koreans who subscribe to broadband, but only 5 million will actually watch Netflix. So it isn't fair to make all customers pay for Netflix when only some of them are watching it.